Welcome to part two of Universal Studios Orlando and Hollywood history. Part two, we ended off on Halloween Horror Nights 12, which was the icon, uh, the caretaker's year. Now we're on Halloween Horror Nights 13. Universal Hollywood doesn't have an event till 2006, so we're gonna do 2013 or 2003, 2004, 2005, then 2006 being both, and then we're going to year 12 or 22, 2012, and then part 3 is going to be 2013, 2020, and then 2021 through 2025 will be episode 4. So, episode 2, Halloween Horror Nights 13. The director is the icon, 6 haunted houses, one of them is a returning haunted house. 6 scare zones, 2 of them are a returning scare zone. I'm gonna do location, house, description for both haunted houses and scare zones. So the dates for this year, 2003, is October 3rd through the 5th, 10th through the 12th, 15th through the 19th, 22nd through the 26th, 28th through the 31st, and November 1st. Tickets were starting at $51.95. It was also the first year they had express passes. There's no price listed. The haunted houses, 6 of them. The first one being in the Popeyes and Bluto's Build Right Bodgers crew, being Ship of Screams. This aging cruise liner was found adrift at sea without a soul on board. Now the decks are roamed by the ghostly crew and passengers. Will you be joining them? Thunderfall's Terrace had Funhouse of Fear. Nothing is what it seems in this mind-boggling maze of optical illusions and maniacal clowns that have you running for the exit. Too bad there isn't one. Triceratops Discovery Trail had Jungle of Doom. Face the curse of the bloodthirsty zombies after trespassing on ancient burial grounds of the lost souls. Even the pounding of tribal drums can't drown out your screams. The Jurassic Park Discovery Center had Psychoscarapy. Get ready for a dose of shock treatment as inmates are running the asylum. If you think having any hope of escaping, well, you really are insane. Soundstage 20 had 2 houses, being All Night Dying. Enter a deserted drive-in theater that shows nothing but slasher films. Peek behind the screen, and you may find yourself in the set of the director's latest slasher piece. And it also had Scream House Revisited. Something is drawing you back to this haunted Victorian manor, where ghostly apparitions and gory corpses try to make sure you'll never leave again. The 2 return scare zones are Port of Entries, Port of Evil, and Swiss Landing's Booville. The new scare zones are Marvel Superheroes Islands, Toxic City, Toon Lagoon's Hide and Shriek, Jurassic Park's Night Prey, and Lost Continent Immortal Island. Bill and Ted and Infestations were the 2 shows. 2004, the 14th year, was in both parks, Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios Orlando. Twice the size, twice the fear. 7 haunted houses, 4 scare zones. One of the scare zones are a returning scare zone. The dates are October 1st to the 2nd, 8th through the 10th, 13th through the 17th, 21st through the 24th, 28th through the 31st. Single admission being $45 and $75 at starting price. Carnage Warehouse, The Disorientorium. From moving walls to spinning floors, you won't be able to find your sanity from the madness. Soundstage 20 had 2 haunted houses. Hellgate Prison. Get ready for a cruel, unusual punishment as the guards as the inmates have overpowered the guards. Horror and Wax. Step inside the long-forgotten wax museum filled with terrifying lifelike exhibits. Soundstage 22 had Ghost Town. A strange electrical storm brings back the spirits of a dusty old frontier town. Soundstage 23, Castle Vampire. Enter a gothic castle where you're surrounded by bloodthirsty creatures of the night. Soundstage 24 or 44, which is the only house that's been located in this soundstage. They were supposed to have a house in the soundstage back in 2012, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Halloween Hornets Nightmares. Halloween Hornets' most infamous characters return, including the director, Jack the Clown, the caretaker, and Eddie. Deadtropolis or Earthquake Q is Deadtropolis. It has a pun here. Fresh meat. That's all you are in this urban nightmare where The Walking Dead feasts upon the living. Get it? The Walking Dead is way before The Walking Dead years, which is also coming in 2012. The one returning scare zone being Port of Entry's Point of Evil. The Boneyard had Midway of the Bazaar again. Sue's back lot had Field of Screams, which had corn, and corn brings in hurricanes, so all the corn got destroyed, but they still used it. And New York backlot having Fright Yard. Two shows, Bill and Ted, Excellent Halloween Adventure, and A Parade. Halloween Horror Nights 15 being the Tales of Terror. This year's icon is a storyteller. 7 haunted houses, 4 scare zones. 2 shows. The dates being September 30th, October 1st, 7th through the 9th, 12th through the 16th, 20th through the 23rd, 27th through the 31st. Single admission being 45 or 54. Why am I getting those numbers? 59.75. Carnage Warehouse had Demon Cantina. The dead are living up to this biker bar from hell, and when they ask you to join them, it's the end of the road for you. Thunderfall Terrace had the school. The children have taken over the school and found horrifying new ways to celebrate Halloween. That's not a jack-o'-lantern they're carving. Jurassic Park Discovery Center had body collectors. It's bloody and gore gallow. In this factory, where processing human body parts is the business, and business appears to be good. Poseidon's Fury, Terror Mines. A darkened mine shaft leading to the underworld has created a first of its kind experience, where you control, or do you, the only light source. So this haunted house, every 12th person would get their own headlamp, and will just like interact the lights and stuff by like sensors and stuff. Soundstage 18 had Where Evil Hides. Remember the worst fears of your imagination that lurked under the bed, in the closet, under the stairs? Well, they're back. Soundstage 20 had Cold Blind Terror, where you can turn when you find yourself in utter darkness. Who can you trust when you can't trust your own eyes? Soundstage 22 had Blood Ruins. Evil and cruelty are the only survivors of this plague-ravaged medieval village, where torture is life and death is your only escape. The scare zones being Port of Entry, Terror Guard Run, which back in Friday Nights they had a show called Chainsaw Massacre, and that show inspired this scare zone. Or no, not the scare zone. It's the next scare zone. Marvel Superhero Island, Blood Thunder Alley. Blood Thunder Alley was inspired by the Fright Night show Chainsaw Massacre. Jurassic Park, Cemetery Mines. Lost Continent having fire pits. 2006, both coasts had an event that year, both Orlando and Hollywood. The Orlando's icons were the original Jack the Clown, the caretaker, the director, and storyteller. 7 haunted houses, 3 scare zones. The dates were as followed: September 29th and 30th, October 6th through the 8th, 11th through the 15th, 19th through the 22nd, 26th through the 29th, and the 30th. Soundshades 22 had Psychoscapy, Maximum Madness. Sippets had a Shady Brook Asylum, or Hospital, where Jack is up to his deadly tricks. Soundstage 23, All Night Dying Take 2. Witness the vilest horror that has ever been spliced together by none other than the director himself. Soundstage 23, Screamhouse, The Resurrection. Dare to tread among the eternally tormented souls of the caretaker's victims. Earthquake Q had run hostile territory. When the lights go out, the Voyagers suddenly become the victims. Saw Jaws. I don't know why I got Saw out of that. Maybe because Saw is coming up in the later year. Jaws Q. Dungeon of Terror Retold. Enter an old roadside haunt where the storyteller's whispers call you deeper into hell. And it's also the first year we had the Sprung Tents. Sprung Tent 1 had Psychopath, the return of Norman Bates. Unlock the door into the macabre nightmares of the psychological killer, Norman Bates. Sprung Tent 2 had People Under Stairs, under construction. Welcome to the home sweet hell, a house so demented that even its incomplete walls bleed. Blood Masquerade, Shrek Alley, Blood Masquerade, New York, Detropolis, Zombies Under Siege, or Zombie Siege, Central Park, Harvest of Souls. The Hollywood event coming up had 2 haunted houses and 7 scare zones, I'm pretty sure. 5 scare zones. The icon was the director, and the chair trim was the director's cut. The dates would be October 13th to the 14th, 20th to the 22nd, or 20th to the 21st, 27th to the 28th, and the 31st. The houses would be the Asylum and the Shrek 4DQ. Travel through the maze of dark corridors in a high-security hospital for the criminally insane. And then the year-round Universal House of Horrors. Terror Tram, the director's cut. It's a very long description. It will make the video longer if I go through it. Lower Lot had Studio Center as a scare zone, or scare zones. Lower Lot, Studio Center, New York, Dawn of the Dead, Western Street, Deadwood, Baker Street, Old London, French Street, The Black Death, and French Street. Going on to 2007, both coasts shared an icon, being none other than Jack the Clown. Over in Orlando, we had 8 haunted houses and 1 scare zone, technically 5. The dates were running from September 28th to the 29th, October 4th through the 7th, 11th through the 14th, 18th through the 21st, 24th through the 28th, and the 31st, November 1st through the 3rd. Ticket pricing starting at $64.95 plus tax. Soundstage 22 had Dead Silence, The Curse of Mary Shaw. The vengeful ghost of the ventriloquist searches a decrepit theater for fresh tongues to rip out. Soundstage 23 had Psychoscapy, Home for the Holidays. Visions of sugar plums turn into horrific holiday nightmares. When a transport bus transporting quiet neighborhood overturns a quiet neighborhood, unleashing the violent inmates of Shady Brook Hospital. Soundstage 23 had Nightmare on Elm Street, Dreamwalkers. Freddy Krueger chases you through 1428 Elm Street, the nightmare you can't wake up from because you're already awake. Nazarman's had Vampire Bloodbath, this is the last house in this location. Vampire Bloodbath, a rave rages in Club Vampire, where bass beats hide the screams of the orgy of blood. In this orgy of blood. Earthquake Q had Texas Chainsaw Massacre flesh wounds. Trapped in the Hewitt family home, you are hunted by the chainsaw-wielding Leatherface and his family of freaks. Jaws Q had Friday the 13th Camp Nightmare. A hazing of new camp counselors in a barn at Camp Crystal Lake turns into a bloodbath when Jason Voorhees returns. Sprungtown 1 had the Thing Assimilations, a secret facility in Florida studying the biohazardous remains of Arctic. Outpost 31 accidentally unleashes something. Sprungtown 2 had Jack's Funhouse and Clownovision. This jacked up funhouse comes at you with more crazed, colorful clowns than you can ever shake as a kid. The park-wide scare zone being midway to Bizarre, Shrek Alley had Chicken Funes, New York had Killer Carnies, San Francisco had Chainsaw Drill Team, Harwood and Plaza de Stars had Motor Maniacs, and Central Park had Troop Macabre. And that was all continued, all connected. Hollywood had a very similar event to Orlando. Less houses than Orlando did, but I think they had more scare zones. I think they had 7 scare zones this year. No, 5 scare zones. Okay, so the same amount. The dates were October 5th through the 6th, 12th through the 13th, 19th through the 20th, 26th through the 28th, and the 31st. The haunted houses being a Nightmare on Elm Street's Freddy's Revenge and the Shrek 4D queue. Freddy Krueger is coming home to where he was conceived, to rise a nightmare army of the insane as a final act of revenge against the town of Springwood. Wild West Stage had Friday the 13th Camp Blood. After a century of murder and mayhem, the eternal evil of Jason Voorhees still haunts the ruined remains of Camp Crystal Lake. Mummy Q had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre back in business. Leatherface and his family of cannibal crazies have taken over the condemned Blair's Meat Factory, bringing a new level of terror to the heart of Texas and the year-round Universal House of Horrors. The terror tram was Horror Come Home. Travel into the deepest park of the carnival, where a rave of freaks come out from the night. New York Street had Zombie Invasion, Western Street had Deadwood, Baker Street had Haunted London, French Street had The Black Death, and Lower Lot had Hell Billy Hoedown. Moving on to 2009, it was also a big year for both. Hollywood having extra 2 scare zones, so instead of 5, they had 7. But in Orlando, we had 8 haunted houses and 6 scare zones. The icon was Bloody Mary, also known as Dr. Maria Organa. The dates were September 26th through the 27th, October 2nd through the 5th, 9th through the 12th, 16th through the 19th, 22nd through the 26th, 29th through the 31st, and November 1st. Ticket pricing starting at $69.99. Giles Q had reflections of fear. The only way for Dr. Mary Elgana to face her deepest fear, death, is to watch the light of to watch the light of life leave your eyes as your soul leaves your body. Parade Warehouse had scary tales once upon a nightmare. Wind your way through twisted fairy tales where princesses don't get saved, children don't find their way out of the woods, and there's no escape from the rabbit hole. Soundstage 22 had creatures. Straight out of the cover of comics, Strange Tales burst forth a rampage and massacre of backwood locals. Soundstage 20 had Interstellar Terror, the first manned spacecraft to ever leave our solar system has returned, but with an alien artifact on board, with devastating effects. Sprung 10-2 had Dead Exposure. Enter a realm where a flash of a camera reveals horrors beyond comprehension as the city becomes overrun by bloodthirsty zombies. Disaster Q had Doomsday. The Reaper virus raves the polis, leaving all those left behind after the plague to survive by any means necessary, based on the blockbuster Universal Picture release. Sprung 10-1 had The Hollow. The Lord of the Underworld has trapped the souls of the damned, and now they call for you. Soundstage 20 had Body Collector's Collection of the Past. Using mass murders and plagues to cover their ghoulish activities, the collectors are consistently searching for the next specimen to add to their macabre museum. The scare zones being Hollywood, Asylum in Wonderland, Woody Woodpecker's Kid Zone being Fractured Tales, Plaza the Star being Path of the Wicked, Mel's Drive-In being The Schoolhouse, Shrek Alley being American Gothic, New York being Street of Blood. Moving on to the Hollywood event, which is pretty similar to last year's event. It only had 4 houses and they had 7 scare zones. The dates were October 3rd to the 4th, 10th through the 11th, 17th through the 19th, 24th through the 26th, 30th through the 31st, and November 1st. The haunted houses were Nightmare on Elm Street, Home Sweet Hell, and the Shrek 4DQ. When the town of Springwood attempts to sell the house of 1428 Elm Street, Freddy Krueger returns to give the town a nightmare they will never forget. In the I lost it. In the Wild West stage had Friday the 13th Camp Blood. It has a long description, so I'm just gonna have the last description of a half-century murderer, or murder and mayhem of eternal evil of Jason Voorhees still haunts the ruins of Camp Crystal Lake. It was basically the same house as the last year, just on a bigger scale. Mummy Q had Texas Chainsaw back in business. And it's also basically the same as the last year's haunted house with basically the same theming, scenes, and all that stuff. Year-round haunt venue had Universal House of Horrors meets The Strangers. So The Strangers was a movie that came out that year. The Terror Tram, a Nightmare Tour, or The Nightmare Tour. As the tram were making their way to the Merlot, a video displaying the story of Freddy Krueger played. The scare zones, front gates being The Nightmare Begins, French Street being The Black Death, New York Street being The Black Death Shall Rise, or The Dead Shall Rise. Western Street was Deadwood, Baker Street being The Streets of London, and lower lot being Revenge of the Pigs. Also, there's a small scare zone in front of the Universal Monsters or House of Horrors being The Strangers. Sorry. 2009, both events had a major year. Orlando had 8 haunted houses, 6 scare zones. The icon was the Usher. Days running September 25th through the 26th, October 1st through the 4th, 8th through the 11th, 15th through the 18th, 21st through the 25th, 28th through the 31st. Tickets starting at $69.99. Parade Warehouse had silver screams. The usher Julian Browning welcomed guests into the Universal Palace Theater, where the movie screen is torn away and some of the biggest names, the biggest horror, or the horror's biggest names, are brought into the real world. Saw Q, or Jaws Q, I keep saying Saw Q. Jaws Q had Saw, inspired by the hit Saw series. You're being tested for your ways. Instead of watching the torture of others, you will be the one causing the pain and torment in grisly traps and games created by Jigsaw and his apprentices. Soundstage 22 had The Wolfman. Based on the upcoming remake of the same name, guests travel through the England countryside and are haunted by the Wolfman. Sprungtown 1 had Chucky, Friends to the End. Guests enter Chucky's world where the demented doll have been turning harmless toys into pure evil. Soundstage 23 had Dracula, Legacy and Blood. Guests enter Count Dracula's castle on the night of the calling, and are given the choice of either becoming an undead servant of Dracula or suffering a painful demise. Soundstage 23 had Frankenstein, Creations of the Dam. Frankenstein's monster has taken revenge against his creator, and his destructive rampage has visitors caught in the middle. Sprungton 2 had The Spawning. Guests are hired to find out who stopped the water supplies at Wyandotte Country, Ohio, by traveling into the town's sewer system and finding out that the creatures the folklore called Scolders really exist. Disaster Q had Leave It to Cleaver. In the blood-soaked dark comedy, Sam meets as a butcher in Cary, Ohio, which will be mentioned way more, with a steady supply of homeless and town lawbreakers as livestock. Mr. Meats and his staff will preserve their deadly secret at any costs. Hollywood had Scare Zones had Hollywood Lights Cameras Action. Woody Woodpecker's Kids Zone had Cirque the Freak. Mel's Drive-In had Horrorwood Die-In. New York had Apocalypse City of Cannibals. Plaza of the Stars had Containment. Shrek Alley had War of the Living. And they also had a small scare zone being in the Sting Alley called Shadows of the Past. From the past, and it had like Jack and all the other icons. Because the next year, 2010, will be an anniversary year, which we'll get into after we do Hollywood 2009. 2009 in Hollywood, the icon was Jigsaw. 4 haunted houses, 6 scare zones, 1 less than last year. The dates were October 2nd through the 3rd, 9th through the 11th, 15th through the 18th, 23rd through the 25th, 28th through the 31st. Mummy Q had Saw Game Over. You want to play a game? You don't have a choice. Enter the twisted world of Jigsaw and the demented serial killer from Saw horror films. From the minute you step foot into Jigsaw's secret lair, you'll know you're being watched. Halloween, or Wild West stage, had Halloween: The Life and Crimes of Michael Myers. Michael Myers, the infamous mass killer, has returned to the town of Haddonfield on Halloween night. Prepare for a terrifying journey through the life of crime of Michael Myers from the original murder in the Myers house in 1963. Shrek 4D had My Bloody Valentine, Be Mine Forever. 10 years ago, a tragedy changed the town of Harmony forever. Tom Heininger, an experienced coal miner, caused an accident in the tunnel that trapped and killed 5 men and set the survivors into a permanent coma. And then Chucky's Funhouse in the year-round haunt. Chucky's show was canned for the unknown reasons in the previous year. It was decided that Chucky would be giving his own maze themed loosely on the old Carnival Funhouse with dolls. The Terror Trim will be Live or Die, which is uh which is a Saw theme, and it's basically the same description as the haunted house. French Street had Freaks. Front Gates had Let the Games Begin. Western Street had The Meat Market. Baker Street had Shaun of the Dead. Lower Lot had There Will Be Blood. New York Street had Welcome to Hell. Those were the scare zones. Halloween Horror Nights 20 being the 20th year. Agent 10, 20 Years of Fear in 2010. 8 haunted houses, 6 scare zones. The icon, his name is Adaru, also known as Fear. The original icon was supposed to be Sydney, but she got scrapped again like she did in 2002. The dates were September 24th to the 25th, the 31st, October 1st to the 3rd, 7th to the 10th, 14th to the 17th, 20th to the 24th, 27th to the 31st. Ticket pricing, single nights started at $74.99. Frequent fear passes started at $74.99. There's also like different prices. Frequent fear with the Express started at $154.98, but there's also other ones. The haunted houses being the Parade Warehouse Horror Nights, the Hallowed Past Halloween Horror Nights. The name brings in millions of tales, each filled with thousands of screams. Now you will have the opportunity to travel into the realm where Horror Nights is not just an event, but reality. Jaws Q, The Orphanage, Ashes to Ashes. This was supposed to be the icon house, but Sydney got scrapped as an icon, and Adaru, also known as Fear, became the icon. Ashes to Ashes for forever now dust. For years she existed in the shadows. She never gets her due, misunderstood by all around her. She had enough of her playthings at the Good Harvest Orphanage. Now it's time for her vengeance. This burned-out shell contains the souls of the forgotten and the lost who all screamed one's name, Sydney. Soundstage 23 had Hades, Gates of Ruin. Hades bids you welcome. Make your way into the underworld and come face to face with the most terrifying creatures and legends as you cross through the Gates of Ruin. Soundstage 23 had Psychoscapy, Echoes of Shady Brook. The truth, as they say, is far stranger than fiction. In this instance, they happen to be correct. Although Shady Brook stores haven't been open or have been closed for at least 15 years, the place is still very much alive with all the criminally insane souls that have been trapped within its walls. Sprung Tent 2 had Havoc Dogs of War. 10 years ago, the Shadow Creek Enterprise was tasked with developing an elite corps of soldiers. They succeeded. That included a compound of testosterone, adrenaline, and other aesthetics. Shadow Creek's run Shadow Creek's latest run of volunteer test subjects are ready for inspection. The project name, Havoc. The subjects are known simply as Dogs of War. Catacombs or Sprungton 1 had Catacombs Black Death Rising. During the plague of Paris in 1534, thousands died due to an undisclosed viral outbreak. A group of doctors took it upon themselves to quarantine the most infected citizens of the city. They had no way of knowing that the townspeople would betray them, sealing them into their doom. They have been unable to escape for almost 500 years. Now the dead have found a way out. They are rising to take their century-old vengeance on any living being that dares to enter the catacombs. Disaster Q had Zombiegeddon. The United States government has retaken the United States as as an activity or actively engaged in clearing the remaining infestation pockets of Canada. The government also licensed the sanctioned private companies to unalive subjects and use them as potential targets during training sessions. Dozens of independent companies spring up promising that that the best training and money can buy, and their name was ZAP, the Zombie Awareness Program. Soundstage 22 had Legendary Truth, the Wind-Out Estate. The Spirit Seekers have came up with a machine that actively gathers spirits towards it. The group has decided to do a live broadcast from inside one of the most reported haunted sites in the United States, the Wyandotte Estate. Built in 1920s in Cary, Ohio, mentioned again, by the entrepreneur Malcolm Wyandotte and his wife Linda. The house has been rumored to be haunted since Malcolm brutally murdered 13 dinner guests and his wife before committing suicide on October 30th, 1929. The team is about to get more than they bargained for, as the murdered hear their calls and answers through terrible violence. The Scare Zones, Hollywood had 20 years, 20 fears. Mel's Drive-In had Fear Revealed. San Francisco had Zombie Gras. Plaza de Stars had Escolto Morte. New York had Salzenstein. Shrek had The Coven. Shrek Alley had The Coven. And sorry for a terrible pronunciation. It's 3 o'clock and I'm tired. But I'm doing this because I want to and it's fun. 2010 in Hollywood had 5 haunted houses and 6 scare zones. It doesn't have any dates listed, so we're going right through. The haunted houses being Shrek 4DQ, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Never Sleep Again. And the description is like 2 paragraphs, so I'm gonna read like the smaller one. The trip took you through a traumatized town of Springwood, including the abandoned ruins of the Badham Preschool, the haunted hallways of Springwood High, and ultimately a showdown with Freddy himself in his infamous boiler room. And there's like 3 big paragraphs, bigger than the descriptions I read for Orlando, so I'm not just like outing Hollywood because Hollywood event actually does look good for the 2010 season. Wild West stage had Kill or Friday the 13th, Kill, Jason, Kill. The eternal evil that is Jason still haunts the ruined remains of Camp Crystal Lake. Now it's your turn to venture through the lair of the infamous killer and come face to face with the man behind the mask. Mummy Q had Saw Game On. Jigsaw's twisted life work lives on through its demented disciples. However, something along the lines, his vision of teaching people the volume of life was lost. The year-round haunt venue had Vampire Castle of the Undead. There is an evil lurking inside Castle Dracul. Deep inside this crumbling 18th century manor lives on an ancient cabal of vampires whose bloodline stretches back from the Dark Ages, inspired by vampire origins myths and of old world folklore. Terminator Q had Rob Zombie's A House of a Thousand Corpses in 3D. Enter a 3D world of carnage and chaos that could be envisioned by the horror icon Rob Zombie as you brave Captain Spaulding's deadly tourist trap. The Terror Tram was Chucky's revenge. After years of being disrespected and ignored, Chucky is ready to take his revenge on Halloween Horror Nights. On Halloween Horror Nights. The scare zones, Western Street had La Llorona. Western Gate had Nightmares with a Z. New York Street had Clowns with a Z. Baker Street had Lunatics with a Z. French Street had Freaks with a Z. Lower Lot had Pigs with a Z. Hollywood really loves their Z's for some reason. Halloween Horror Nights 21. The icon was Lady Luck. 8 haunted houses, 6 scare zones, 2 shows. The dates were September 23rd through the 24th, 29th through the 30th, October 1st through the 2nd, 6th through the 9th, 13th through the 16th, 19th through the 23rd, 26th through the 31st. Single night admission started at $81.99. Multi-night tickets starting at $69.99. Frequent Fear access with Express started at $169.99, but there's also like other tiers of the passes. Sprung Tent 2, the first house, had Nevermore, The Madness of Poe. The madness of Edgar Allan Poe's greatest works has come to life. Step into the mind of the iconic writer, where every turn of the page takes you closer and closer to the brink of insanity. Parade Warehouse had The Forsaken. 4 ships began Columbus Faithful's voyage. Only 3 became legend, condemned to the watery grave. The mutants of the cursed crew of that 4th ship has returned with a vengeance. Soundstage 23 had The Thing. Inspired by the thriller, paranoia spread like an epidemic among a group of researchers in the isolated Antarctica outpost, as they are infected one by one by a horrifying creature from another planet. Jaws Q had its last haunted house being Saws and Steam into the machine. Spinning blades and massive crushing pistons await you around every corner as you are forced deeper into the bowels of the mechanical nightmare. Give yourselves to the machine. Disaster Q had HR Blood and Guts Holidays or HR Blood and Guts presents Holidays of Horror. Join the featured host HR Blood and Guts in his final televised broadcast as he presents a scare-a-thon of holiday-based horror that is guaranteed to cleave you screaming for more. Sprung Tent 1 had The In-Between. A portal reveals a third dimension where all is not what it seems, a realm where our world and others collide. Surrounded by fiendish creatures, your eyes will deceive you with every step through this phantasm horror. Soundstage 22 had Winter's Night, the Hawthorne Cemetery. As snow falls on this normal scenery Gothic cemetery, the deceased souls that occupies this that occupies the cemetery confines have their sights set upon you, ensuring that the chill you feel up your spine is more than just of the cold night. Soundstage 23 had Nightingale's Blood Prey, which is the first iteration of the Nightingales series. There's only 2 houses. Hopefully we'll have a third house later on. The nightingales are creatures that have existed since time began, feeding on the weak, ill, and the dying in wars and natural causes. Patrolling World War I era trenches, you discover that you are more than just at war, you are being hunted. The scare zones being New York's acid assault, International Food Bazaar being Canada Dark Souls, Central Park being Grown Evil, Hollywood being Seven, which is Seven Deadly Sins. Not like the anime, but like it's based on Seven Deadly Sins. Shrek Alley being Night Maze, and Sting Alley being Your Luck Has Run Out. Hollywood had 6 haunted houses and 5 scare zones. I remember watching videos of Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood from this year, and I honestly thought they were real when I was younger in 2011. I honestly thought all that was real, but thankfully it's not. No one is harmed. Mummy Q had hostile hunting season. Escape a devilishly. I cannot pronounce that. Uh, Okay, let me restart. Home to Eastern Europe's most horrifying hostel, where pleasure and pain go hand in hand. Descent to hell's darkest corner as you sample the forbidden fruits of extreme terror. It's hunting season, and vulnerable prey is on high demand. Jurassic Park Q had Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare, which was also, or no, it's gonna be next year for Orlando, that Alice Cooper would be featured. Wait, no. No, yeah, it will be 2012 where Alice Cooper gets featured. I got mixed up for a second. As I was saying, enter the gruesomely twisted mind of a shock rock legend Alice Cooper as he takes stage in what is sure to be your final performance. Find your way through the labyrinth of razor-sharp guillotines, smell of burning flesh upon electric chairs, and face off against deadly boa constrictors, demonic dolls, and more. The next house being the Thing Assimilations, being in the Wild West stage, which is also the same. It is the same description as the Orlando house, so I don't have to redo it. Terminator Q had Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses in 3D zombie vision. Enter a 3D world of carnage and chaos that can be in. Okay, it's the same thing as the other year. Year-round Haunt has Wolfman the Curse of Talbot Hall. And there is no. There is, okay. Take a treacherous stroll through Blackmore's haunted countryside where the roads run red with blood. Somewhere in the shadows, a truly grotesque creature lies watching, waiting to strike when the moon is full lit. And this one has Spanish. I can't really read Spanish much, so I'm just gonna read like the main title. So Shrek 4D has La Llorona, which is the first La Llorona house. Entering the chilling legend of pain and anguish as as your ears succumb to the petrifying scream of a woman consumed by a dreadful gale of drowning her children and then herself, doomed to wander the earth for eternity. La Llorona will stop at nothing to find the souls of her murdered children. The scare zones being front gates had Scream, Baker Street had Zombieville, Lower Lot had the Reapers with an S, New York Street had Clowns with a Z, French Street had Freaks with a Z, Terror Tram was Scream for Your Life. Go behind the bloody scene of the Universal backlot where many Hollywood's most horrific scary movies are currently filming rumors of tourists being killed by a cloaked murderer having begun to emerge, but the Ghostface killer couldn't be real. Or could he? And that's the Hollywood event for 2011. 2012, this is gonna be the last year before episode 3, which would be 2013 through 2019, and then 2020 through 2025 on episode 4. There is no icon for Halloween Horror Nights 22. 7 houses. We lost a haunted house this year. This was what I was talking about earlier. Soundstage 44, which was supposed to have a house this year in Halloween Horror Nights 22. It only had a 100 haunted house at Halloween Horror Nights 14, which was the uh, Halloween Horror Nights Nightmares. So, uh, the dates were September 21st through the 22nd, 27th through the 30th, October 4th through the 7th, 11th through the 14th, 17th through the 21st, 24th through the 28th, and the 31st. Single admission starting at $88.99. Multi-night tickets starting at $69.99. They all have current or different prices for each thing. It will just take forever to read them off. If you can with express access, started at $179.99, and there's also more. They also had frequent or stay and scream, which started at $36.99, and other days had different prices. Soundstage 20 are the houses. Soundstage 20 had Dead End. If enough people believed in something, if enough people believe in something, it can become reality. In Cary, Ohio, that reality was that countless horrific acts that occurred in the old Hartford mansion. The reality was that the curse which befell the house was far worse than any story ever told. Uh, Soundstage 20 also had Gothic, which apparently this house was very short. By day, the cathedral is being restored. By night, the gargoyles that keep watch come alive. The parade building had Universal House of Horrors. This is no mistake, no sequel, no reimagining. These Universal classic monsters of fear who have terrified the audience since from the silver screen have been waiting within the silver screen to be resurrected. The flash of lightning cuts through the darkness that surrounds, and terror's true face takes back what's theirs. Sorry. Uh, Disaster had The Walking Dead, which is the first year of The Walking Dead. There's a strength in numbers, and you must band together to make it through many of the iconic settings from the made famous by the critically acclaimed AMC television series The Walking Dead. As the city is crawled with hordes of walkers, the issue of the of the issue of yours becoming one of them is not a question of it, but when. Next haunted house is Sprung Tent 1, being Alice Cooper's Welcome to My Nightmare, which is also the same description as the one in Hollywood, so I'm not gonna read it. Same for Silent Hill, it's the same description, and for The Walking Dead, it's the same description. Journey into the legendary rock Alice Cooper's twisted mind and witness the natural mending of horror of Cooper's 4-decade-long career. Soundstage 22 had Silent Hill. In the eerie and desolate town of Silent Hill, ash falls from the sky as a physical law of nature no longer applies. If you dare to venture into this alternate dimension, there's only one law of nature. Within you must be concerned, or with which you must concern yourself, survival. And then Pel Sprung Tent 2 had Penn and Teller nuked Vegas. We're coming on an hour, by the way, so this is gonna be the long episode, and next one is gonna be a long episode because actually no, I'm gonna do 2018 and 2019 for Orlando separate, and then Hollywood's as a separate. So there might be more than one episode because we're coming up on an hour. During an During an attempt to enhance vision on one of their tricks, the world-renowned musicians Penn and Teller accidentally nuked the city of Los Angeles, Nevada. But don't worry, it's nothing for fresh coat of paint and truckloads of BS can't fix. So, and then the one scare zone, which park ride Legions of Horror. And then the last one, Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood. 6 haunted houses, 4 scare zones. They had Wild West Stage, The Walking Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Saws a Lot, and the Jurassic Park queue. Some families are sicker than others. Based on the iconic original film that redefined the face of horror, relives one of the most grotesque crimes in all of American history, and all new Maslow escape from a house of flesh and bones as Leatherface, the infamous human butcher, hunts you for sport. And then you got Silent Hill, La Llorona again. It's the same description as last year. Yes. That was in Shrek 4DQ. Terminator Q had Alice Cooper Goes to Hell 3D, and it's the same description as the last one for Hollywood, and Universal Monster Remix, which is the same as the normal House of Horrors descriptions. Terror Tram invaded by the Walking Dead. Scare zones being Lower Lot, Silent Hill, Baker Street Toys with a Z, French Street Witches with a Z, Front Gates being Clowns with a Z. So next episode we're gonna do 2013 to 2016. Yeah, I'm doing 2013 to 2016, and then each year we're gonna have, and then 2017 to 2018 will be Orlando, 2017 2019 Hollywood. They're gonna have their own, and then vice versa. So that's it. Thank you. Have a good night.